Welcome back to FreightWaves Live at Home. My name is Kevin Hill, and I'm joined now with Alfonso Quijano from Lean Tech. He's the co-founder and COO. Welcome, Alfonso.
Hey, thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Why don't you start off by introducing yourself and Lean Tech?
Yeah, for sure. So I myself am the COO at Lean Tech, as you mentioned. I primarily take care of everything that has to do with operations, but I also participate a lot in the engineering decisions. I'm an electronic engineer, software developer, and I'm very passionate about logistics, machine learning, and pretty much anything that has to do with automation. In regards to Lean Tech, so Lean Tech is basically a nearshoring provider of technology talent for companies that are basically doing anything that has to do with technology in the logistics industry. So we have a very strong focus in logistics. We're a sister company of Lean Staffing Solutions, which is pretty much recognized as the go-to provider for finding back office support for logistics right out of Colombia. So our big focus for Lean Tech is basically developing any type of technology that you need in this sort of technology-centric new wave for the logistics industry. And as I've said pretty much in the past, we want to, at Lean Tech, sort of lead the charge towards enabling that automation-centric, technology-centric future for the logistics industry, which is one that is very much ripe for disruption.
Nice. And you're located in the beautiful city of Medellin, Colombia. What attracted Lean Tech and yourself to locate there?
Well, I guess you struck a point there. Medellin is actually very beautiful. It's called the City of Eternal Spring. So aside from the weather, there's something very particular about Medellin in general. A few years ago, it was named one of the most innovative cities in the world. It is a hub for technology of all Latin America. And it's sort of been the focus for technology companies, outsourcing companies, and nearshoring companies for a couple of years now. And when we sort of took the plunge into technology and said, no, we have something at Lean Staffing which works great. You know, the nearshoring model for logistics is that missing piece that enabled companies to be more efficient, to have a sort of access to a very professional workforce at lower costs. And we felt that we needed to be able to do the same for the technology world. And the only place where it actually made sense was Medellin. It has the available talent, which is very much recognized in the world for being incredible, coming directly from universities. And it's just the environment to grow a technology company is perfect. Even the space where we decided to grow our organization is in a building that is fully technology-centric. It was recently renamed from its original name, Bureau 4.0, to Lean Tech Tower, basically because they wanted to sort of portray that technology focus that it's having through Lean Tech to the world. We got our sign up in the building, and we have plenty of space to grow in our first, second, and third wave of developers in the city. And in general, the city has been very helpful in allowing us to grow to these large numbers that we're sort of forecasting for our next waves.
So it's like the Silicon Valley of South America or Latin America.
Yes, actually, great addition there. Medellin is actually named the Silicon Valley of Latin America. Specifically because of what I mentioned. It's high quality talent, but I mean, on the other hand, when you try to get development talent in Silicon Valley, you can encounter many issues and challenges like high costs. There's not a lot of availability nowadays because the nature of the development work is ever changing. There are a lot of industries over there like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, and the works. And the ability to find talent that is focused on the logistics industry is hard. And on the other hand, Colombia, and pretty much through Lean Tech, we are enabling logistics companies to have access to that high quality talent.
And I'm sure you have a lot of buzzwords for technology in Medellin, like you do here in the U.S. And one of the biggest buzzwords around is RPA. And it's hard to define that sometimes, especially for novices like me. Could you define really what RPA is and your definition of it and how lean tech applies that?
Great. So RPA is something that's a buzzword in general, but we feel that it's just a tiny piece of this automation world that's ahead of us. I think a better word a word that fits better for this sort of new trend is something called hyperautomation, which was recently named by Gartner one of the sort of trendy topics for 2020. And what hyperautomation is basically the combination of everything that's good about RPA with AI, cognitive analysis, and basically other technology-driven advancements, such as anything that has to do with software development, anything that has to do with integrations. We see a lot of big companies nowadays like Microsoft, Amazon, and the typical RPA providers out there like UiPath and Automation Anywhere. They're all sort of combining forces and are very synced. And the products that they want to deliver, they want to democratize the technology. And with that, I basically move into what the role that lean tech plays into there, and it's that exactly. It's democratizing this technology for everyone so that logistics company in particular, who are pretty much investing in technology, investing in automation, especially during these hard times that we're facing right now where everyone's trying to cut costs and trying to be more efficient. At Lean Tech, we want to lead the charge with this. We want to make sure that we give access to these companies vetted technology talent that is well-versed in all automation aspects, not only from an operational standpoint, but also from a technology standpoint.
So when you talk about hyper automation and RPAs and winding that into the logistics, what are your favorite use cases right now for logistics companies to implement RPAs and hypergrowth?
So I think that I have to sort of take it from the top there. To properly identify what can be automated, you pretty much need to rely on someone who can invest in looking into your organization that is able to identify those key processes or those key technology elements that will allow you to automate those processes, combine the business and technology elements together, and then is when the actual automation occurs. It's very sort of misleading to say that there's going to be a possibility to just throw automation at everything. We believe in a very standardized process, which involves a first scenario, which is process discovery. Being able to correctly identify what can be automated and how it can be automated. And the how is also key. Basically, what we want is to use the existing workforce, augment their talents, augment their work, and then augment all of that with sort of the technology advancements and automation so that you can reap the best benefits from the automation. So going down to the specific cases for logistics, I mean, one of the typical ones is, for example, anything that has to do with data entry, track and tracing. On the accounting and billing side, there are a lot of automations to be made. But as I mentioned, it varies across different organizations. So to actually be able to say, like, you can automate every single type of data entry processes, you have to go a level deeper. You have to analyze if those processes can actually be automated, which takes me into another very important topic, is the technology aspect of it. RPA was initially meant for legacy applications, which means that there are applications that don't have access to more robust methods of automation, such as API, are more resilient, or basically the way to go when you already have future-proof systems. But the way that a true automation works is being able to have a grasp of that whole universe. and then combine the technology for RPA, the actual RPA process, and then the existing workforce, combine that into three, and then being able to have a partner that can walk you through the best process to actually implement those things.
That's very interesting. And after that initial automation or hyper automation with RPA, what's like the next stage in the cycle that logistics companies are going through, and what lean tech can help them out with?
Yeah, so I'll talk about a very popular subject that is being thrown around, which is the displacement of work. So RPA is meant to, as I mentioned before, augment the existing workforce. Automation in general, software development, they are all meant to augment the existing workforce. What happens is that sometimes people have the wrong notion that you're just going to throw automation into a process and it's going to completely displace what you currently have in place. And I believe that lean tech and all companies in general have a big responsibility in this new future that's sort of centered around automation. And it's to take their existing workforce and take them to new levels. Provide training programs that will allow them to be more competitive, that will allow them to have greater skill sets. And I think that is where lean tech and also lean staffing play a big role. From the lean tech side, we basically have the technology knowledge. We know how to apply automation. We know how to create software for companies. Lean staffing has a huge workforce that is basically able to be trained, as we've done successfully for the last couple of years in RPA, and as we've done in logistics previously. So our huge responsibilities there is to say, all right, from here until there's been a lot of estimates around 2030, which is going to be sort of a very important date for automation, in which we're going to see a lot of changes. We have a very big responsibility from here until then to provide that training for the workforce, to be able to say, companies that are looking for automation, you're going to get an augmented service. You're going to get people who are very much talented or trained in the automation world that can work as what's known as sysadmins or administrators of the automation process, creative minds of the automation process. And you're going to have lean tech who's going to provide the technology expertise to apply them. So as you can see, it's a combination of two, and it's what provides that successful formula for companies to be able to correctly apply automation into their workforce. So I guess to summarize that question, what's next for lean tech is sort of a coalition between lean staffing and lean tech, where we work together towards being responsible, being able to prepare ourselves for what's to come, and also give logistics companies the ability to apply automation procedures effectively into their companies.
That's a fantastic description of that formula and then definitions for everything, Alfonso. What are some of your parting thoughts of where the industry goes over the next, say, 2 to 5 years? What's coming down the pipeline, do you think?
So, as I mentioned, we've been trying to transition towards technology for quite a while now, specifically in logistics. I mean, I always talk about being an industry that's ripe for disruption. Okay, so like we that have been developing applications for quite a while now for companies, we have seen firsthand what companies are looking for, what processes they're trying to automate, we've also seen what's wrong, right? So I see a lot of companies basically changing their culture a lot, changing to a culture that accepts or embraces automation within their organization, and that provides that training internally. So no longer will we be talking about those 3 or 4 vendors out there that will provide, let's talk about the bot. The bot itself is maybe a confusing term for a lot of people. Is this something that's going to be deployed, for example, within a computer? Is it going to be across my entire network? Let's try to break it down into something that's sort of more digestible. A bot would be basically an entity that could take a process as small as possible, which is key to automation, and can provide instant ROI on that minimal process. And when you start identifying those small processes, you're able to quickly define what's needed for the long term as a company. Maybe you're looking to invest into the accounting aspect of your company and try to bring in greater throughput, for example. Maybe you're trying to have a more efficient data entry processes for your track and trace between your different systems. So identifying that is that first and most important part of the process. But you can't really get anywhere with that if you don't have access to the technology. So going back to the different vendors that are available today, that means you'll go to maybe UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism. You'll go to these guys and you'll try to go into the automation world and you'll hit a roadblock. Because even though there's a lot of focus on providing training, on providing sort of getting you to that next automation stage, it requires an extra effort, which is to actually democratize the access to the technology. So the real trend from here on out in the next 5 years is going to be that access. How companies such as, for example, Microsoft has started leading the charge towards granting you access to these bots or these automation procedures at a more accessible cost. So we're talking about something that could be part of your suite of products, like, for example, your Google G Suite or your Microsoft 365, something as simple as what you do on your day-to-day will now involve RPA. So pretty much every single part of our process will now have that first, how can I automate this? How can I save myself from hours of work by just using this suite that's available to me from the get-go? And Microsoft is just one example. Amazon actually just released another SaaS integration product that I'm very excited about called AppFlow. There's a lot of companies that will just try to stick the flow suffix into pretty much every one of their technology suites. And that's pretty much where we're going. We saw Microsoft doing this, Amazon doing this, Google will probably do this very soon. It will tie itself back to business intelligence. It pretty much, before we know it, everyone will have RPA as something as simple as opening up your email and being able to automate the process of sending information over to somebody else. So I think that's where we're going to be in the next couple of years.
And that democratization is it sounds like it's really going to expand, just rapidly.
Yeah, no, I for sure. I think that it's going to expand, and obviously, as I mentioned before, we're in very difficult times right now. And companies are looking to cut costs or looking to find ways to overcome these difficult situations. So companies are looking for ways to avoid being disrupted. Employees are looking for ways to be displaced. So, they'll start looking for access to higher training grounds. So what's coming right now is that there are companies who are also going to be very successful in the fact that they'll provide the training grounds for these companies to search for these new methods of work. Which actually goes back to what I was saying before. We have an incredible responsibility with Lean Tech and Lean Staffing to be that source of training for our next employees. I mean, we currently have 1,400 employees at Lean Staffing that can all have access to this new work. We're already preparing for it. Our team, as they have invested in our logistics course, our logistics training, have already done a heavy focus on the automation world. And that coalition I talked about has a lot to do with this. Lean Tech will sort of lead the path towards allowing Lean Staffing to know what that next step is. What does their workforce need to know to be in the game? And Lean Tech plays an even bigger role in that democratization part, because we're going to start using technology and sort of giving access to these companies that need it in a more cost-effective way. So this is going to be really tied to the demo that I'm going to do for FreightWaves, in which I'm going to do a small showcase of one of our systems that we created that is specifically for the logistics industry, that enables more companies to have access to these automation workflows. It's in a pinch, I'll describe it. It adds an added dimension to RPA. It involves software development, which has been around for decades, and now combines it with RPA, meaning you can automate processes and have instantly usable software at a very cost-effective rate that can be then augmented via the use of professionals that are previously trained in automation through lean staffing. So in that sense, we make the perfect team to enable companies that are looking to reinvent themselves in the logistics industry.
Great insights, as always. Thank you very much, Alfonso. Again, that was Alfonso Quijano with Lean Tech in Medellin, Colombia.